What are you doing? Don't drink my water. Come and show everybody that you won. Sybil's won. She doesn't like aging.
Look at you.
Hello everyone, I hope you're well. Today's video is basically my perfect day, starting with brunch with a friend and pancakes, which to be fair I have pancakes like nearly every weekend, but it's always special when someone else makes you pancakes, even though normally it is Ben who makes me pancakes. But anyway, and walking around Clapham and just the fact that it is now spring and I can film at like 5 PM and just the kind of the daffodils are coming through, there's blossom very slightly on the trees, and so it's basically my dream time of year, really, the start of kind of spring, and also book shopping, because I've been on a book buying ban, but that has ended. I'm having a little kind of a break, a bit of respite for March, and then I'll be back on it. So I bought a couple of books. Before I leave you to enjoy the day that I've just enjoyed, I want to briefly talk about two books, The Hating Game and It Ends With Us. Both of these choices are really kind of unusual for me and a bit unexpected, the fact that I would want to pick them up and read them. But I have been reading solid non-fiction, which I love, like I adore history books. But I've just been gravitating towards like romance, and I'm just really glad I did. And this really shows, I think, how influenced I am by Booktok and Booktube at the moment. But sometimes I have to remember when books are really popular, it's just because they're really good. If you were looking for a great enemies to lovers romance that also has kind of the depth that, you know, pretty much all romance novels have, and brilliant characterisation, I cannot recommend this enough. It has just been an absolute joy to read, and it's definitely become one of my favourite romances. I haven't read that many romances in my lifetime, but the ones that I have read, like The Flat Shed by Beth O'Leary, is just one of my favourite books, and this has definitely gone up there with kind of like my 5-star romance read. I think Sally Thorne is just such a great writer, but I do wonder if there's like a slight self-indulgent element as to why I like this book, because it's set in publishing, and obviously I work in the publishing industry, and there is a thing of people who work in publishing or in that kind of world that they just love reading about themselves. I think that's why kind of like working in publishing or working in journalism is in pretty much every Richard Curtis film. When I was reading, there was definitely an element or like a question of whether this book was in fact just my own fantasy, because Lucy obviously works in publishing and she's small and she wears red lipstick, and she's a part of the publishing company that believes that literature is obviously art versus a side that views it just as kind of a commercial quantity, like a product to sell. And I was kind of reading it and I was like, yeah, this is literally me. And I don't collect Smurfs yet, but I have to be honest, I did look them up on eBay, so you never know, I may kind of get a Smurf collection very soon, just to fulfill my kind of Lucy dreams. My reading goal for 2022 is all about just enjoyment and enjoying every single book I pick up and really getting pleasure from sitting down and reading and just being in a story. And I don't think I've enjoyed a book quite as much as this one for a really long time. The next book is It Ends With Us by Colleen Hoover. Like me, I'm sure you have seen this book absolutely everywhere, and I was slightly sick of seeing it, so I needed to read it just so it would kind of leave me alone. But I actually really enjoyed this, and I am surprised by that, because I basically nearly DNF'd it. I nearly put it down because I couldn't stand it. For basically like the half of the book, I just wasn't into it until like the shit hits the fan, and it suddenly got so good and really gripping. It's a definite really difficult subject matter, and I would be kind of cautious around it, but I think actually now I have read it, it had such a brilliant impact on me, and I was really struck by Colleen Hoover's writing. And it wasn't like one of the best books I've ever read, but I'm actually really glad I kind of stuck with it, because Colleen Hoover is a writer that kind of drops things at the very beginning of the book, and afterwards it's all kind of the puzzle piece all kind of comes together and everything ties up really neatly. But it really had an emotional hit, I think more than I was expecting. What's really odd and also kind of brilliant about this book is actually the thing that I didn't click with at the beginning of the novel was actually the thing that made, I think, the emotional outcome of the book so impactful. So the narrative is built up of kind of journals and reading Lily's younger self reading these journal articles. I find it really annoying. I don't always like reading the perspective of teenage characters, which is just my own personal problem. You get so used to all of these journal articles and they suddenly stop, and then when they're revisited and when they come back, that actually the way I think the whole narrative is constructed is quite clever and actually really allows kind of you to feel to take on a lot of weight and also to feel a lot of the emotion of the book. So I was completely surprised by this. I didn't think I would enjoy it at all because I wasn't enjoying it until I was, and it definitely kind of kept me hooked, which is exactly what a piece of kind of great commercial fiction does. So yes, a recommendation, but also a kind of reminder to me that one, obviously popular books are popular because they're good, but also I kind of need to persevere sometimes. It's quite rare that I DNF a book because, to be honest, it's quite rare that I don't enjoy a book that I'm reading, but I'm glad that I picked up something that is completely out of my comfort zone, oddly, in what I would normally read, and I guess challenge myself to read a book that is a different kind of genre, and I've actually found it to be a really kind of insightful or just a good reading experience, which is also kind of the aim of the game for 2022. So they're the two books I've recently read and enjoyed. If you have any recommendations off those, please let me know, especially any kind of romance books, because I'm really just feeling that at the moment. But I'll allow you to enjoy my Clapham clips, and then I'll see you at the end of this video for my book haul. Now I'll show you the 3 books that I bought today, 2 of which you will have seen in the video, so I'll start with those. I'm going to start with this absolutely stunning hardback, which is the Embroidered Book by Kate Hartfield. And I think we all just need a moment to appreciate just how beautiful this is, with all the little pearls and the sprayed edges. I'm actually in love, especially because it does look like an embroidered book. The embroidered book is one of my most anticipated reads of 2022 and I can't wait to read it. The synopsis of this book is basically like my dream, because it is a magical retelling of history, and in particular it's a fantasy about Maria Carolina of Austria, the Queen of Naples, and Marie Antoinette. It's about those lives of those two sisters with a little bit of kind of magic thrown in, and I'm just interested to see how it will deal with these two really strong women and controversial figures, and also kind of the fascinating history of kind of the French Revolution. It's a time period that I've been obsessed with since I was practically a child, and I'm really excited to see kind of Kate Hartfield's take on it. And I've also really been wanting to reread my Antonia Fraser biography of Marie Antoinette. In fact, I think I've got that here, so I'll get that in 1 second. So this is the biography of Marie Antoinette that I have read, and it is the only one I've read. So if you have any more recommendations of books about Marie Antoinette, or indeed kind of Marie Carolina as well, please recommend them to me. But this book has been just well loved, and I think I must have bought it, oh yeah, inside there's one of those roundel stickers which says this book was inspired by the film. I don't even know when the film came out now, that must have been years ago. 2006 was when I first read this book, so I would have been 11. Yeah, I would have been like 11, so I think it's time for a reread, because I adored this and I've revisited quite a few times but I've never fully reread it, and this is one of my kind of 2020 goals, has actually just been to reread a lot of the historical non-fiction that I've read, because I think, one, you forget it over time, obviously, because so many of them I read a really long time ago, but also because I think your attitudes to kind of historical events as you just know more changes. So I've been really wanting to kind of reread this for years, but now with the embroidered book I think it's the perfect time, because whenever I do read kind of historical fiction, even though I know that this is fantasy, but in fact that adds kind of an extra special element to it, I really like to read kind of the piece of fiction alongside a piece of non-fiction, so I can see what's been changed, why, and also just because I'm a geek. Moving backwards in time now, we have The King's Painter by Fanny Moyer about Hans Holbein, and it's another one of my anticipated reads. I've actually been waiting for it to come out in paperback, and I'm really glad I did, because it is stunning. I think I actually prefer this cover to the hardback cover, which normally with non-fiction I really like hardbacks. I don't really tend to read hardbacks with fiction, but I do with non-fiction. I don't know why, maybe it feels more serious. Anyway, this is really beautiful and I'm excited to read it. Hans Holbein is one of the most important figures of the Tudor era, and really he was the Tudor era, because so many of the portraits that we now see as being icons of that era are by Holbein, and so many of his portraits changed the course of history too. I'm really looking forward to actually learn more about the man Hans Holbein, like the man behind the easel, so to speak, because he literally painted history. He saw so many cultural shifts happen, and there's also an element of him being an outsider, a bit like Chapuis, and therefore his perspective is a little bit different, and I also just want to know all of the gossip he would have kind of heard as a court painter. I think the fact that he was an outsider, so to speak, was actually really what intrigues me, because I think that England, in particular in English history, especially kind of during the Victorian era, we kind of refocused all of our narratives around history as making everything so isolated and not actually viewing England in the way that it was in the Tudor era. And I think the fact that our most famous portraiture of one of the most famous eras in English history is documented by an immigrant is just wonderful. And the influences that kind of Holbein had on future portraiture and propaganda, the whole thing's just fascinating, so I can't wait to read Fanny Moore's take on it. Don't get me wrong, I don't know a lot about art history, or art in general really, and I do love royal portraiture, and that's like my thing, but I just don't think there's been an artist that has captured so many icons. Like, just also, they look so real, and they look like actual humans, and I love the richness of them. I just think underrated, despite being very rated. So that is my historical fiction and my history fix, and now time for my romance fix. We have the Spanish Love Deception, which I think I'm just going to devour because it is my favourite tropes again, enemies to lovers and fake dating. Love fake dating, don't know what it is about it. I've heard nothing but good things about this book. Also love the colour of this book as well. I don't think it's quite showing up as well on camera, but it is really beautiful, and I think I'm just going to love this. I think I'm just going to have a really good time, and yeah, pretty much every Booktok book I've read I've loved, which I think I was a little bit, not a hipster, but I think I was a little bit afraid of the hype, but now I've read so many that I've enjoyed. I just need to go with the flow, enjoy reading, and yeah, just have a good time with a bit of romance. Thank you so much for watching this video, and if you have watched the end, please leave me a cat emoji and I'll know. Last time I said that, I asked people to do it like at the middle of the video, and that was a bit too easy, so this is the real test. Not that I'm sure it's fine if you've left early, but then if you've left early you're not seeing this bit. So if you are here, thank you, and yeah, leave me a little cat emoji and we'll both know. We'll both know that you're dedicated to the cause of this video. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you again soon with another one.